Okay, in this learning module, we're going to learn how to perform some operations on decimals. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the place values. So before the decimal point, you have the ones place. That ones place is very important because everything centers around that ones place. Before the decimal point, then we have the tens, the hundreds, the thousands, the 10,000, so on and so forth. And to the right, it's the same pattern, but we put a TH at the end of it. And the reason we put a TH at the end of it is to specify that that's after the decimal point. But the pattern is the same. Tenths, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, and so on. The ones is the only one that doesn't repeat because it stays in the ones place. That's what everything is centered around. Okay, so let's take a look at example number 1 first, which asks us to add these two decimals. So the directions for adding and subtracting are written out, but essentially what we're going to do is we're going to line up all the decimal points, and then we're going to add like normal. So my decimals here are 24.6. I'm going to add to that 2.39. So let me see if I have a little bit of room here. 24.6 plus 2.39 plus 0.0678. Okay, and if you need to, you can add zeros. So actually, you know what? I'm going to move this over to the side. 24.6, 2.39, and 0.0678. I'm going to add zeros everywhere that I need to fill in place values. So let's go ahead and add straight down. 0 plus 0 plus 8 is 8. 0 plus 0 plus 7 is 7. 0 plus 9 plus 6 is 15, but we have a 1 that we need to carry. 1 plus 6 is 7. 7 plus 3 is 10. We need to carry a 1. Let's drop that decimal point in place. 1 plus 4 is 5, and 5 plus 2 is 7, and then bring down the 2. So we got 27.0578, but they want us to round the answer to the nearest thousands. So remember, with the TH, it means after the decimal point, so here's your ones, your tenths, your hundredths, and your thousands. So your thousands is at 7. I need to look at the 8 to decide whether to round up or down. So that's going to tell me to round up. So the rounded answer is 27.058. Okay, I put those squiggly lines meaning that it's been rounded. It's been approximated at this point. Let's take a look at number 2. It's a subtraction. So again, I need to line up those decimal points. 863.23 minus 39.453. You can fill in a 0 there. Okay, let's start subtracting. I cannot subtract 3 from 0, so I need to borrow from the 3, make that a 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. And again, I can't subtract the 5 from the 2, so I need to borrow, make that a 12. 12 minus 5 is 7. I cannot subtract a 4 from a 1, so I need to borrow. Makes it 11. 11 minus 4 comes out to be 7. Drop your decimal point. I cannot subtract the 9 from a 2, so I need to borrow from the 6. I have 12 minus 9. 12 minus 9 is 3. 5, I can't subtract 3 from 5. 5 minus 3 is 2. And 8 minus nothing is just 8. So I get 823.777, but they want us to round to the nearest hundreds. So remember, ones place, tenths place, hundreds place is at 7. I got to round up because of the other 7 next to it. So the answer rounds to 823.78. Okay, make sure you remember how to do this. There is a rounding problem on your final exam. Let's try example number 3. I got to remember my rules for signs, right? I have 2 negatives here, so I got to add up the 2 negatives, and my answer will be negative. So let's go ahead and add negative 2.6 plus negative 5.97. I think I'm going to do that on the side again. Negative 2.6 plus negative 5.97. This is an addition. So I'm just going to add them up, keep the negative sign. 0 plus 7 is 7. 9 plus 6 is 15. Carry the 1 and drop your decimal point. 1 plus 2 is 3, and 3 plus 5 is 8. So I get negative 8.57, but they want us to round the answers to the nearest 10. Look very carefully, there is no TH there. So the ones place is 8, the tens place is right here where there's nothing. So I'm going to round up to the nearest 10, and the nearest 10 is the whole number 10. So this rounds to the nearest 10. Let's try number 4. We have a subtraction of an 18.56 and an 8.23. So to subtract, you line up your decimals. Let's go ahead and subtract. 6 minus 3 is 3. 5 minus 2 is 3. Drop your decimal point. 8 minus 8 is 0, and 1 minus nothing is 1. So I get 10.33, but they want us to round this one to the nearest tenths. So here's your ones, here's your tenths. That 3 is going to tell me whether to round up or leave it the same, and it turns out that it rounds down to 10.3 because that 3 is less than 5. Okay, let's take a look at example 5. In example 5, we got these double negatives here, which really means that I'm adding negative 5.7 plus 2.6. That 2.6 is positive. Furthermore, I know my answer is going to be negative because the bigger number here is negative. If you don't understand how these signs are working, you may need to go back to the sign numbers refresher. But this answer will indeed be negative. Remember that, because the bigger number is negative. I'm going to write a negative sign here, so I remember that. Okay. So I'm going to take 5.7 minus 2.6, because when the signs are different, I subtract. 7 minus 6 is 1. Drop your decimal point. 5 minus 2 is 3. So I get negative 3.1 because the bigger number was negative. They want us to round the answer to the nearest whole number. The nearest whole number is negative 3. That's that ones place right there.